If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Today's chat's been brought to you by International Horse College. International Horse College's motto is people safety and horse welfare, and you'll find this message throughout our chats. Registered Training Organisation number 31352. Today we've got another one of our regular guests. We've got Jonna McLean, and Jonna's coming on for the 13th time talking about 10 questions to ask about training direction. Now, last time with Jonna, we talked about potential purchase after we've sort of got our foal. We talked about handling our foal for the first time, bringing it right through, right up to riding it, training it, taking it out, and asking about a potential horse purchase. But there's another side of the coin too, as a professional trainer, or, there's lots of reasons why you may get a horse that we don't know anything about their background. And this is sort of a little bit about training direction that we're going to talk about. So how are you today, Jonna?
I'm really good, Glenys. How are you going?
Good. Jonna, this is a little bit of a difference. Previously we've sort of known all about the horse. We've had the horse and we've known all its background right from when it's first born and probably when the mare was sort of first served, all the way through. And now we've got an unknown horse. So how do we know what the potential future possibilities are of the horse? So Jonna, talk to us about the horse when it first arrives, and if we go through this evaluation of a new horse that we haven't met before, we don't know about it, when it first arrives, what sort of questions can we ask, or what sort of things are we looking at when the horse first arrives and it's just coming off the truck or the float or whatever?
We'll be talking to the truck driver or the horse float driver about how well the horse travelled and how well it loaded.
Yep.
How did it go during travel? Were there any issues? The other thing that I'd be looking for is really having a look and see where the horse was, depending on how long it's been standing there. How many manures did the horse do? And what sort of context were the manures in? Was it runny, or were they all really well formed and it seemed like a reasonable amount of manure for that period of travel, or what did it do? So I'm looking at those sorts of things before I even have clipped up the horse and unloaded it from the truck or the horse float, or the owner is, or whoever's transporting the horse to me. And then I'm letting the horse actually tell me the rest of the story. So all of a sudden, the horse has been transported from one galaxy to another. And, in the context of horse travel in a float or in a truck, the horse may be quite comfortable, but when he emerges, all of a sudden the smells are different, the sights are different, all the sounds are different, and the horse will react according to those different stimuli. So they will tell you a fair bit about how well the horse accommodates to the new context, your environment. So how well does he lead when he unloads? Is he worried? Does he look quiet, or does he look really, really sharp and a little bit flighty? What is he like when I put him in the stable or in the yard to settle down? Does he eat, or does he pace? What does he do? So I'm really letting the horse tell me the entire story.
Okay. Now, once they've had this, once they've sort of been there, and you've let them settle, what sort of things are we looking at, with that basic familiarisation? You've put them in the yard or the stable or whatever. When we're observing the horse, what are we looking for? What questions are we asking ourselves about this horse?
We're asking ourselves about this horse, how quickly does it accommodate to the context of my environment? So, for example, all my horses have already called out because they know there's a new person arrived on the farm, and they can all tell. Yep. And if it's a girl, there's probably a fair bit of calling out and running around, et cetera, et cetera. It's all exciting. But what I really want to find out from the horse that's just arrived is that when I pop them into the box and I've actually let the horse settle, and then I handle it again to feed it, change its rugs or pick its feet out or whatever I'm doing, or even just go into muck its box out, am I really confident that this horse's reactions in this new environment are a whole lot better than what they were, or is the horse exactly the same as it came off the truck? Has it still got a heightened state of anxiety, or is it still really, really quiet? So I'm just letting the horse tell me the entire story, really, by finding out how tractable they are after they've settled. When I say tractable, I'm talking about tractable basically means how easy is it to manage the horse in terms of its operational features, stop, turn, go, yield, etc., in its new context now that it's settled. Is it any different to when it travelled?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and if the horse is there and starts, running around, and if it's sort of settled in a smaller area and you've let it go into a bigger area where it can show off the walk, trot, canter, how do we pick out, what are we looking for? We talk about a horse's favourite pace. What are we looking for in that favourite pace so that we can see? I mean, we're evaluating a horse. We're sort of seeing what the potential future possibilities are. How can we tell which is its favourite pace?
When we talk about the favourite pace of the horse, we have to be careful that we're not evaluating the horse's favourite pace when it has a high state of arousal or a high state of anxiety, because that won't be its true form ultimately when it settles. So when it does settle, what we're looking for is how well does the horse use its paddock? Is it looking for any other friends? Is it a horse that's been with other horses? You'll know all of that, hopefully, when you've asked the seller these questions. Has it been paddocked with company or has it been by itself? But really, when we let the horse go, what does its walk like? What is its canter like? That's what I'm really, really keen on. And it really doesn't matter whether it's a dressage horse or it's a race horse or whatever it is. Most of the work that we do with our horses involves more and more cantering. So I want the canter to be comfortable, I want it to be balanced, and I also want it to be expandable and contractible. So I want to be able to shorten it, I want to be able to lengthen it. If I can't do those two things, then I can rebuild that and help the horse develop those skills. But it's a whole lot easier if the horse has a really, really good walk and a really, really good canter. That's what I'm looking.
Okay. And say if the horses often will go from walk to canter and doesn't show trot, is that a problem? Is it desirable? And also if the horse does, do that cantering that you talked about, the contracting, expansion, what sort of sports or what would you be looking at for a horse that's got that good canter and a tendency to go walk canter?
Yeah. If the horse is a little bit rotated behind, in other words, his pelvis is rotated out, so he's actually standing out behind, he probably won't have a very good canter. But the horses that are really well coupled, that have a fairly low set tail, that actually go from walk to canter, means that really all the thing you've got to do is train the horse to be able to trot. And it's far easier to train a horse to be able to trot well than it is to be able to canter or walk well. When they don't walk well, they don't generally canter well.
Mm-hmm.
And now, from a racing point of view, this isn't that desirable because I'm talking about it in the equestrian feature here. But in a racehorse, depending on whether it's a stayer or a sprinter, if it's a sprinter, I want him low in front, high behind, and heaps of power and short couple. If it's a stayer, I want a really good length of rein, I want that classic New Zealand staying thoroughbred type of horse that will get over some ground. That's a completely different racehorse. He's a little bit more level in terms of his wither and his croup there. But from an equestrian point of view, I want to make sure that I can expand it and contract it, because if I'm able to do those things, then I can accommodate dressage, I can accommodate show jumping, and I can also do cross country as well. So that's a really important feature.
Okay, good. And thinking about it now and thinking about, is this the right horse for this rider, we've also got to consider that whole weight ratio, haven't we? So can you talk about the weight ratio, but also too, and I'm sort of calling on you to be a bit, it's not just being ethical, but it's also being considerate of the rider, to say, how are you going to tell the rider that maybe this horse isn't within your in your ratios? Tell us a bit about the ratios first, and then we'll talk about being tactful for riders. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the rider and then we'll move to the horse. It's far easier to work out what's required for the horse than what's required for the rider, because the rider will actually probably resist your comments a little. So we have to be a little bit careful, tactful, but we also need to be fairly firm with what we say. So from a riding point of view, let's start with skill sets. Skill sets means that let's look at what horses they've actually been on, what they've competed on, and how well they've done that at that level. And if they've had 5 or more horses at that level in the same breed type, maybe off-the-track horses, then, generally they'll be fine and they'll select the right horses. But it takes 4 or 5 horses to be able to get to the point where you're a pretty good selector of your own horse. Mm-hmm. However, if you're then, as a coach, from my point of view, from a coaching point of view, if the skill set of the horse is far more athletic than the rider, then I just make the call and just say, look, the horse is more athletic than you are. This is not right for you. And I make that call a lot. Mm-hmm. And people are still persistent and say, can you get me to ride this horse? And I said, well, I can. I absolutely can. However, there's a couple of things that you really need to be mindful of, and that is that when things go not well is when I want your buttons to work, so you have to really listen to me. And that's why I train with headsets. So I'm actually microphoned up to my pupils, so I can speak really quietly, deliberately. They work up to a mile away. And for that reason, that I need them completely 100% focused on me, because if their skill set is nowhere near the realm of the skill set or the athletic capability of the horse, they shouldn't even be getting on it, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where it starts and finishes for me. Yep. If the horse won't stand in self-carriage at the manning block and be able to do walk canter in the arena, we don't go out of the arena.
Yes. Yep. No, we've got the same thing too, and people don't understand it, but I just think the more that we keep pushing it, Jonna, and there's reasons why, and it's safety, and if we can prevent accidents, then that's just what we do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've just come back from New Zealand, and they've had like us all. I mean, in Australia, we've had a nasty spate of racing accidents, and these things will keep happening all the time. But at the end of the day, we have to try and get some sort of enlightenment from these things, and that is, if the benchmarks that we set as coaches and as trainers are X, Y, Z, we've got to stick to our guns here, because otherwise, with no benchmarks, we are just going to allow willy-nilly results, and why would we do our occupation with that?
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that whole safety is just something that we've got to keep talking about, I think. But, Now, what about the weight? You talked about the skill level, ability for the horse.
The skill set. So the next step is from the horse's point of view, is that from the horse perspective, really internationally, we've pretty much nailed it. 15% of the horse's weight is what the rider should be. Mm-hmm. And they also have, I believe, regulations in Europe saying that anybody over a certain age can't ride ponies anymore. I'm not that keen on that, because there's such a variety in people's sizes from what I can see.
And there's quite a few small light adults.
Well, exactly. And look, people, even I've seen the largest riders, my goodness, I can't believe you're an event rider. And you see them ride, and they ride really fluently. And if they ride lightly, and the horses seem really comfortable, then, that's far better than a lightweight rider that actually doesn't know what they're doing. They're really scared, and they're giving the horse heaps of conflicting signals. It's a hard one, because it's not really a clear benchmark. It's all about how well does the horse go for the rider, and how comfortable does it feel. So, it's all very well to say, we've drawn this 15% rule, but really that's an overarching indicator. Mm-hmm. But it's up to us as coaches and as helpers to be able to say, okay, well, how comfortable does the horse understand all the signals that you're giving it, and does it know what it's meant to be doing, or does it look as if it's not coping at all?
Yes, and if we take it as a guideline, not black and white, then we're sort of able to take all the other considerations in. Yeah.
That's precisely right. So, I've got photos of me, and I've had some positive, fun feedback, and I've had some negative feedback, And there's a picture of me riding a 10-hand pony that I was breaking. It was a 3-year-old pony. It was actually for my stepson, and he ended up going to Werribee on that little horse, and doing quite well. And the horse, I think, when he went to Werribee, the horse was 5, and Lockie was 5, and I was really fortunate that I was such a lightweight rider, because I'm 59.5. I've been 59.5 my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
That I could actually just ride this horse reasonably effectively, enough to be able to pop him on, and then be able to make sure that he understood that the signals that he had to do to try and make this horse listen to him were effective, but he actually really understood that he had to say good boy and release the pressure. And do that. And then that meant that I was able to translate context. And that's really what it's all about for everybody, is that can you translate context so the horse understands the question?
Yep. Okay. So just going back, about this horse that we've got and the training direction, just thinking, if you say, right, I'm going to event the horse, but then it doesn't work out very well for cross-country, and it may not have a lot of scope cross-country. I suppose you can still jump it, you can still do dressage, and if it gets to a certain level and it really shows a lot of scope as a show jumper, you don't have to do the dressage, you don't have to do the cross-country, but the fact that you've trained it is going to make it a scopier show jumper, isn't it? So I suppose is that, right. And even as a racehorse, if you're sort of taking it out and you're sort of riding it up and down a few hills and through a bit of water and up and down a couple of little banks, it's still going to help it as a racehorse. So just that, it's almost like cross-training, that variety of training is probably, just I'm just thinking about the skills required for dressage, show jumping and cross-country. How easy can they get transferred across to the other disciplines?
Gee, I reckon out of all the questions you've asked me, Glenys, that's probably the best question you've ever asked me. And I'm going to go further than that and say, I don't know whether there's any racehorse trainers listening to me, but I reckon their racehorse would actually race a whole lot better if they actually broke their horses in and then did 6 months of dressage training or cross-country training or dressage training in undulating terrain, but dressage training nonetheless. Mm-hmm. In being able to get the horse to be able to expand its stride, lengthen its stride, shorten its stride, and understand what's required of it, whether it be racing or eventing, a whole lot better than if we just say, okay, I think you're going to be an event horse. Oops, you've had a couple of refusals. Maybe you should be a show jumper. The reason it's had refusals is not because it's not scopy. It's probably had refusals because the question is too big.
Okay,
and we get that in eventing a lot. So I have to be really careful here in saying just because a horse has refusals doesn't mean it doesn't like cross-country. It just means that you've actually asked the wrong question, because cross-country is all about context. And I spend a lot of time speaking to course builders about this, and I've got quite a few friends that are course builders and FEI course builders at that they understand that what the horse is looking at and what the background of the fence is looking at will pretty much dictate the effect of the population of riders coming through on that fence, whether it be 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, or 4 or 5-star in this case. Mm-hmm. So, and then in show jumping, for example, if the horse bumps and he rubs quite a few fences and then they'll say, he's not going to be a show jumper. Well, we don't know that. We don't really know that, because did you free jump the horse and did the horse look like it was a pretty good show jumper when you free jumped it? Because if you're a rider, your job is to be able to emulate what he does free jumping, and if you can't do that as a rider and a trainer, you probably won't have a show jumper either.
Yep. Okay. I'm just thinking about the horse's natural tendencies. So say if you got one that, some horses are curious, some want to run away, some might get a bit aggressive.
Yep.
Turn, snort, whatever.
Yeah.
How are we going to use these natural tendencies to, use them, but use them in the positive rather than having a fight with the horse every time they do something that's just not exactly what we asked, Every time they show a bit of personality, we don't want to fight them. How can we bring their personality out and continue to train them?
Another good question is that for the horses that are a little bit scared and a bit timid about where they're putting their feet, and they're a little bit precious about not standing in the mud, and I don't want to take I don't want to take a step into the water here. I prefer to jump it because my feet are a little bit precious and they're a bit sensitive, and they're inclined to shy and they're a bit reactive. That's my show jumper.
Mm-hmm.
I want a horse that is actually a little bit too scared to touch the odd things, the things that are a little bit different. That's my show jumping horse.
Okay.
And it took me a fair while to work this out, but really as an event rider, I ended up working out that it wasn't a horse that was brave. I could train it to be brave, but just by making sure that I was really consistent with my training and really solid with the sort of fences that I approached him to in training, and also very careful to do this in competition as well. But what I really wanted was a horse that had 3 good paces. No, they don't have to be fantastic paces, but 3 good paces, but was actually really careful even when he was tired. And the horses that shied and the horses that were a bit scared and the horses that were a bit reactive were always the horses that actually went clear after they were tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
So I was actually after a good moving 3-pace dressage horse that I was actually a little bit worried about where he's putting his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I could train to do the cross-country stuff because that's just training.
Yep, okay. And then, I'm just thinking, because we've done so much groundwork in the early stages, and I know that you're really keen on stop, go, turn, park, yield. What do we do? We're looking at a horse. Do we just say, oh, no, they should already know that and not do it? Do we revise it? Do we, say, well, maybe it's got to be in contact? Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
If I am experiencing a horse that is a little bit inclined to be very, very bendy and evasive with his hind quarter and swinging his quarters left and swinging his quarters right, for example, he's a really, really nice bendy horse. Mm-hmm. And probably those horses that are inclined to do that often have a good canter, and that's not a coincidence. Okay. So they're horses where the motor is actually trying to pass the driver, if you understand what I mean.
Yep.
The hind quarter being the hind end of the horse, and they're trying to pass you. So really the challenge is trying to get everything straight and everything channeled to the point where I can control the back legs and the front legs independently of one another. And I'm a great believer in this, is that unless you can train independent mobility of the front end and the back end, you're probably never really going to have a horse that goes beyond novice, because you won't create bend. You won't be able to go to elementary into medium and sort of elementary start the bending process with the shoulders, etc., and then medium follows it up with the hindquarters and being able to do bend, and then ultimately we're going to do the half pass and then changes. So, from that point of view, the mobility of the horse and what it can do and how bendy it is or not is actually going to tell me how much homework I've got to do to be able to fulfill my objective, whether it be show jumping, dressage or eventing. So from an eventing point of view, pretty much if your horse can do a bit of half passing, do flying changes, that's as much as you really need to do. You don't need to do much more than that. But from a dressage point of view, the dressage really, FEI point of view, it actually really doesn't start to happen until you've got bend.
Okay.
And so it's interesting, diverse of features, I find, and that's why I always encourage everybody to start off your horse as an event horse, because then he can do undulating train, he can do dressage, and he can do show jumping, and then work out from that and say, well, maybe I don't like eventing anymore, or maybe I don't want him to jump solid obstacles anymore. I'll just show jump him, I'll just do dressage, or I'll just do combined trainings, whatever.
Okay. All right, now the riding out. I know that you're sort of keen, and I think you said before about just riding out, and you can still do work. You can still say, right, straight line now, we'll do this.
Yep.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about riding out and how that's going to, we're talking about training direction, so choosing which way your horse is going to go. What sort of things are they going to show us when they ride out? And then if they show us something, some particular tendency, does that mean that they're good at something or potentially good at something, not good at something? What are we looking for there?
Riding out is, I believe, getting your horse out, because you can do dressage on the trail.
Sure.
Anybody who thinks that dressage is in the 20x60 doesn't understand dressage. So you can actually do dressage whenever and however you want to. You can do it on the beach, you can do it on the trail. So what we really want to be able to do is to be able to expand and contract the paces, be able to do minuscule changes within the pace so that we can have some sort of really finer adjustments, walk, trot and canter within those paces. And then we can do independent controls of shoulders and hindquarter, etc. And we can do all those sorts of things on the trail. The really important question is, when we go out on the trail, how well does the horse accommodate the footing? So if it's slippery, or if it's raining, or if it's really sunny, or if the kangaroo is jumping out, or if there's a wombat jumps across, or there's motorbikes in the area, how well does the horse accommodate all those things? So that actually tells us how easily startled or how easily does the horse then go from being very, very operational to, now I'm not sure if I've got much control, just through the changes of his environment, whatever they are. So it tells us a whole lot about the horse's mentality, because that is what's going to happen in competition. In competition, there's a lot of left field things happen. There'll be slightly out of control horses. There'll be people that you have to be held up, or you've been told that you actually don't start for a while. So, there'll be changes of context all the time. And those riding out things, when you're riding out in the wind, in the rain, in the sun, with motorbikes or with animals amongst the cows, will tell you how well your horse accommodates change of context. So it's a really, really valuable insight into the horse's capability.
Now, Jonna, at this stage, we've got a horse, and this is sort of just the last question to finish off, just talking a bit more about the context and the care of the horse, I know that you're really big on the roughage. They've got hay ad lib,
Yep.
Maybe they've got like an oil-based feed or something, stabled at night, and they're giving you signals like the bed is messy in the morning.
Yes.
How important is it to have a friend and thinking about horses in their natural environment in a herd, and how important is that to do with their training, balancing their training?
Yeah. We don't even understand the importance of this yet, because we're not even very good at it. Mm-hmm. And by that, what I mean is that we tend to, as people, have a horse that is on a young foal that is on a mare, and then we wean it, and then from that point on, it's in isolation. Mm. What are we doing? That's not how horses are meant to be. Horses are actually meant to be in contact with other horses. Now, if that is not possible, you have to then step into the area of in that context and become, can I say, that horse's best friend. You've got to get in there and groom it and stroke it and make it really feel really comfortable with your presence. If you're not going to let it be with other horses, can you imagine if you were a person and you were actually put in isolation after you went to primary school? How do we all think that this would go? And so it wouldn't go that well. So what we need to do is have tactile inputs and mental inputs and training, if it's done really well, is a fantastic way of being able to keep the horse stimulated. So it's really important that when we walk into a horse's box, we observe how settled the horse was that night. Are his droppings good and firm? Did he drink enough water? Did he finish his feed? Is he comfortable with the routine? Is his box a complete disaster and I can't even pick it up? I probably need, I need a special machine that everything's ground into the sawdust. Or is it a really easy box to muck out and there's a big flat spot in it because he's laid down and he's had a big sleep? Okay, cool. So I've got a fairly settled horse here. So there's lots of things that we can tell about the horse's demeanour. There's lots of things that we need to be able to do to make sure that a horses are really comfortable with us. Because if they can't have another horse to touch and to groom or just to be near, then, it's just not fair. That's not fair.
Yes, and, we keep talking about welfare, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the horse is what we want. It's got to be what the horse needs.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly, because this is a primal drive. So, we're talking about something that the horse that has been domesticated over however many years of time, but at the end of the day, those drives still exist. Mm-hmm. He still needs of the same kind to be near him. And if he can't, we need to replace it with something.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not fair. And then we go out and we buy, all sorts of products because you've got stomach ulcers. I mean, really,
Yes.
we're only looking at symptoms of a deeper problem here. I mean, this is not rocket science. So,
Yep. No, I think anyone is going to say, well, yep, John is on the side of the horse, that's for sure. So all this information you're giving us is just getting people to look at it, and you keep referring back to what the horse wants. So, yep, I think thanks again, Jonna. Been great talking to you. And this has given us 10 questions to ask about the training direction, but I understand that we've sort of talked about you doing 1 or 2 case studies on horses that you're working with, and I'm just looking forward to talking to you some more because you keep going into, you've got so much knowledge, so many different areas you can talk to. I could probably just keep talking, but we do need to finish, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you next time.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure that we'll be able to uncover some case studies. So thank you very much, Glenys. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Talk to you later, Jonna. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.